Hello?
It hasn't been easy. But after much effort, here we finally are.
Who are you?
I know now that you're the one that I've been searching for. The special one. The chosen one. Miss Ashcroft.
What if I told you that one of Umbrella Corporation's most enigmatic researchers has recently emerged from the shadows, carrying secrets that connect directly to the Raccoon City incident and a mysterious government project called Elpis? Victor Gideon, a name that's becoming increasingly important in Resident Evil lore, represents a different kind of villain than what we're used to. While Wesker sought godhood and Birkin chased biological perfection, Gideon appears to be following in the footsteps of Umbrella's founder himself, Oswald Spencer.
A new superior breed of humans, given birth by the progenitor virus. The Wesker children were entrusted with endless potential. Of them, only one survived. You.
Are you saying I was manufactured?
I was to become a god. Creating a new world with an advanced race of human beings. However, all was lost with Raccoon City. Despite that setback, your creation still holds great significance. Now my candle burns dimly. Ironic, isn't it? For one who has the right to be a god. To face his own mortality.
The right to be a god. That right is now mine. The right to be a god. You. Arrogant even until the end. Only one truly capable of being a god deserves that right. The right. With Ouroboros, I have that right.
In this part, we are led to believe that Albert Wesker is the only child that survived the Wesker project, but there is also another Alex Wesker. She was the only other one to truly succeed. She appears as the main antagonist in Resident Evil Revelations 2. Unlike Albert, she didn't get cool powers like super speed. Instead, the virus made her sickly. This led her to focus on digital consciousness transfer so she could live forever in a younger body. Today, she survived through Natalia Korda, a young girl whose mind she successfully hijacked, which would be like 25 to 26 years old now in Requiem, which could be working with Gideon, and the fact that he wears a snake leather jacket that is similar to Albert. And the fact that Spencer probably lied to Albert about his project lost within the Raccoon City destruction because everything Wesker did was a move to gain more control. And he didn't want it to fall on Wesker's hands. So it could possibly mean it passed down to Gideon with his care center since Spencer used his Spencer Foundation to fund countless medical facilities and orphanages as fronts for biological testing.
Alex!
Alex Wesker. It can't be the same woman. Where's Moira? Natalia, what are you?
Natalia?
Now you can call me
Alex.
No! Don't make me do it!
Make you do what, Barry?
God damn it, Natalia!
A cage went in search of a bird, but now the bird is gone. The bird has changed.
Victor Gideon is a virologist whose connection to Umbrella Corporation runs deep, and whose actions in recent years suggest he's been working towards something far more calculated and long-term than simple bioterrorism. His story connects Umbrella's dark past to mysterious government operations, and his recent actions in 2026 reveal a man who has been patient, methodical, and deadly in pursuing whatever goal he set his sights on. This is his story, pieced together from what we know about one of Resident Evil's most disturbing antagonists. Victor Gideon served as a researcher and virologist within Umbrella Corporation during its operational years. He might be working on T-virus research and bioweapons development. What made Gideon distinct from other Umbrella scientists was his apparent alignment with Oswald Spencer's broader vision. While we don't have complete details about his specific role, evidence suggests he was more than just another lab technician. He was someone Spencer trusted with significant projects since he is still alive and doing research in 2026. Oswald Spencer's philosophy went beyond simply creating bioweapons for profit. Spencer envisioned a new world order, where evolution could be controlled and directed, where humanity could be reshaped according to a grand design. Most Umbrella scientists focused narrowly on their individual projects, Birkin on the G-virus, others on various B.O.W. development, but Gideon appears to have understood Spencer's larger goals. This made him valuable in ways that transcended his technical contributions. During his time at Umbrella, Gideon likely contributed to the practical infrastructure that made the corporation's bioweapons program viable on a global scale. Gideon may have been instrumental in creating deployment systems for various B.O.Ws, including the Coffin containment units used for Tyrant transportation and control mechanisms that made weaponized creatures tactically viable for military applications. Gideon is shown wearing sophisticated high-tech goggles with advanced optical systems, equipment that suggests familiarity with precision engineering and technological integration rather than just pure biological research. These aren't simple protective eyewear. They appear to be specialized equipment that could be used for monitoring biological specimens, analyzing environmental conditions, or controlling automated systems. This level of technological sophistication points to someone who understands the intersection of biology and engineering. Moreover, the Rhodes Hill Chronic Care Center facility that Gideon operates shows signs of advanced automation. The facility functions as what appears to be a closed-loop system, with biological weapons treated as operational assets rather than mere creatures. This systematic, engineered approach to bioweapons management mirrors the kind of infrastructure Umbrella would have needed to deploy B.O.Ws globally. Someone had to design these systems, and Gideon's current facility suggests he has extensive experience doing exactly that. His work wasn't just about the science. It was about the implementation of Spencer's vision. Where other researchers saw individual projects, Gideon understood the systematic approach needed to turn biological research into a functioning weapons empire. This systematic thinking, this ability to see the forest rather than just the trees, positioned him as a potential successor to Spencer's legacy in ways that even Wesker, with all his ambition, might not have fully appreciated. To understand Victor Gideon, let's compare him with William Birkin, two brilliant Umbrella scientists who took vastly different approaches to their work and left very different legacies. Both were exceptional virologists. Both worked on transformative bioweapons projects, but their philosophies and outcomes couldn't have been more different. William Birkin was obsessed with biological perfection. His G-virus represented the pursuit of the ultimate organism, something that could evolve infinitely, adapt to any threat, and achieve a form of immortality through constant transformation. Birkin's approach was immediate, personal, and ultimately self-destructive. When cornered in 1998, he injected himself with the G-virus, transforming into a monster that killed his own colleagues and contributed to Raccoon City's destruction. His legacy is one of brilliant but reckless ambition that consumed him literally and figuratively. Victor Gideon represents patience and long-term planning. Where Birkin sought immediate transformation and personal evolution, Gideon appears to have followed Spencer's example of working through systems, through carefully laid plans that might take decades to unfold. Birkin died in 1998, transformed into a monster beneath Raccoon City. Gideon survived Umbrella's collapse, purchased a medical facility, and continued working on mysterious projects for nearly 2 more decades. That contrast is striking. Birkin's work was revolutionary but chaotic. The G-virus created powerful mutations, but they were unpredictable and uncontrollable. Gideon's apparent focus was on systematic, controllable applications that served larger strategic goals. Where Birkin would sacrifice everything for his research, including his family's safety, Gideon demonstrated calculated patience, waiting years or even decades for the right moment to execute his plans. One was fire that burned bright and fast. The other is ice that preserves and endures. Both men represent the corruption of brilliant minds by Umbrella's culture, but they show different facets of that corruption. Birkin lost himself in obsession and became a literal monster. Gideon retained his humanity on the surface while pursuing goals that may be even more disturbing because they're calculated rather than impulsive. Understanding this difference helps us appreciate why Gideon has emerged as such a compelling antagonist in recent Resident Evil lore. When Umbrella Corporation faced bankruptcy and dissolution in 2003, many of its scientists scattered, some arrested, some killed, some absorbed into successor organizations. Victor Gideon took a different path. In 2003, he purchased the Rhodes Hill Chronic Care Center, a medical facility that would serve as cover for his continued research. This wasn't the action of a man running from his past. This was someone establishing infrastructure for future operations. The Rhodes Hill facility became Gideon's base for work connected to something called Project Elpis. This mysterious U.S. government project has connections to Raccoon City's destruction in 1998, though the exact nature of these connections remains unclear. The name Elpis is significant. In Greek mythology, Elpis was the personification of hope, the one spirit that remained in Pandora's box after all the evils escaped. What kind of hope could a project connected to Raccoon City's nuclear destruction possibly represent? For 15 years, from 2003 to 2018, Gideon operated relatively quietly, conducting research at Rhodes Hill while maintaining the facility's legitimate medical operations as cover. This patience is characteristic of someone following Spencer's model rather than the impulsive approaches of other umbrella scientists. Spencer built his empire over decades. Gideon appears willing to work on similar timescales. Project Elpis seems to require something specific, something that Gideon has been searching for or cultivating during these years. The project's connection to Raccoon City suggests it might involve survivors, viral samples, or data recovered from the incident. Given Gideon's background in virology and his apparent commitment to Spencer's vision, Project Elpis could represent an attempt to salvage and continue research that was lost when Raccoon City was destroyed. Perhaps it's an effort to recover or recreate something that was buried beneath that nuclear fire. What makes Gideon particularly dangerous is this combination of patience, resources, and commitment to a long-term goal. He's not a bioterrorist seeking immediate chaos or a mercenary selling weapons to the highest bidder. He's a true believer in whatever vision Spencer planted in his mind years ago, and he has the discipline to work toward that vision across decades. This makes him fundamentally more threatening than many of Resident Evil's more flamboyant villains. In October 2026, nearly 23 years after purchasing Rhodes Hill, Victor Gideon makes his most significant move yet. He kidnaps Grace Ashcroft, a young woman whose blood apparently holds the key to freeing Elpis, whatever that means. This action suggests that Project Elpis has reached a critical phase, that decades of patient preparation are finally coming to fruition. Grace Ashcroft's significance to Gideon's plans indicates that Project Elpis involves specific genetic factors or viral antibodies. Her blood being the key suggests she carries something unique, perhaps immunity to certain viral strains, perhaps genetic markers that make her compatible with whatever Gideon is trying to achieve, or perhaps she's connected to Raccoon City survivors in ways that matter to the project's success. Gideon's actions in 2026 reveal a man who has been working toward this specific moment for decades. The kidnapping isn't opportunistic. It's the culmination of years of research, planning, and preparation. Everything he's done since Umbrella's collapse, possibly everything he did while working for Umbrella, has been building toward whatever freeing Elpis means. This level of commitment and patience makes him reminiscent of Oswald Spencer himself, who spent decades building toward his own vision of human evolution. The timing is also significant. By 2026, most of Umbrella's direct legacy has been dealt with. The BSA has been fighting bioterrorism for years. Most B.O.Ws have been contained or destroyed, and the immediate threats from organizations like Neo Umbrella have been addressed. Gideon has waited for this moment when attention might be elsewhere, when people might have started believing the worst was behind them. That's strategic thinking on a level we rarely see in Resident Evil villains. What makes Victor Gideon truly fascinating is how he represents the continuation of Oswald Spencer's philosophy rather than its mutation or abandonment. Spencer believed in directed human evolution, in using biological science to reshape humanity according to a grand design. Most of Spencer's students and associates either perverted this vision for personal gain or abandoned it entirely after his death. Gideon appears to be one of the few who truly absorbed and continued Spencer's work. Spencer's approach was always systematic and long-term. He He founded Umbrella as a legitimate pharmaceutical company that could fund decades of secret research. He cultivated relationships with governments and militaries. He recruited and trained brilliant scientists like Birkin and Wesker. He built infrastructure that could survive setbacks and continue operating even if individual projects failed. Gideon has followed this exact playbook, establishing legitimate cover, maintaining patience, building towards specific long-term goals. The key difference between Spencer and many of his scientists was scope. Birkin wanted to perfect the G-virus. Wesker wanted personal godhood. Spencer wanted to reshape human civilization itself. Gideon's work on Project Elpis, with its connections to government operations and its decades-long development timeline, suggests he's operating on Spencer's scale rather than the more limited ambitions of other Umbrella survivors. There's something deeply unsettling about this realization. We've spent years in Resident Evil lore defeating individual threats, stopping outbreaks, destroying B.O.Ws, taking down bioterrorist organizations. But Gideon represents something we thought died with Spencer, a true believer in the original vision, someone patient and methodical enough to actually achieve what Spencer started. That makes him potentially the most dangerous villain the series has introduced in years. Victor Gideon's story carries several important themes that resonate throughout Resident Evil lore. First, it demonstrates that Umbrella's legacy isn't just about the viruses and creatures they created, it's about the philosophies and ideologies they spread. You can destroy every B.O.W, eliminate every viral sample, but ideas are harder to kill. Spencer's vision infected minds as thoroughly as the T-virus infected bodies. Second, Gideon represents the danger of patience combined with fanaticism. Many Resident Evil villains are impulsive or opportunistic. They see a chance for power or profit and grab it immediately. Gideon has waited decades, maintained cover, and worked methodically towards specific goals. This patience makes him harder to detect and harder to stop because he doesn't fit the typical bioterrorist profile. Third, his story raises questions about government complicity and oversight. Project Elpis has connections to U.S. government operations. How much did various authorities know about Gideon's activities? How much did they enable or even support his research? The relationship between official government operations and bioweapons research has always been murky in Resident Evil lore, and Gideon's story seems poised to explore those dark intersections. Finally, Gideon embodies the horror of the true believer, someone who isn't motivated by greed or personal ambition, but by genuine commitment to an ideology. Those are often the most dangerous antagonists because they can't be bought off, can't be reasoned with, and won't abandon their goals even when faced with defeat. They'll sacrifice anything and anyone for their vision, just as Spencer did, just as Gideon appears willing to do. Victor Gideon stands as one of Resident Evil's most compelling antagonists precisely because he doesn't fit the usual mold. He's not a mutated monster, not a cackling bioterrorist, not a mercenary seeking profit. He's a scientist who absorbed Oswald Spencer's vision and has spent decades patiently working to realize it. In following Spencer's footsteps, he may actually be more dangerous than Spencer himself, because he's learned from Spencer's mistakes while maintaining the same terrible commitment to reshaping humanity. As we continue to learn more about Project Elpis and Gideon's ultimate goals, we're confronting uncomfortable questions about how deep Umbrella's influence truly runs and whether their ideology can ever be truly defeated. Gideon reminds us that the real horror of Resident Evil isn't just the monsters we can see and shoot. It's the human minds that create those monsters and the visions that drive them to do so. The story of Victor Gideon is still unfolding, but one thing is clear. In following Oswald Spencer's legacy, he represents a threat that goes beyond individual outbreaks or isolated incidents. He's working towards something systematic, something that's been developing in the shadows for over 2 decades. And that might be the most terrifying prospect of all. See you on the next breakdown.
Welcome. What can I interest you in?